All right, so here we go. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today was the COVID-19 testing, which I think it's been difficult for the district to get this off the ground. And so there have been some hiccups. We were originally supposed to have the folks out on our campus last week. However, as it turns out, they weren't able to sort of get everything organized and moving. And just so folks know that the district has subcontracted out with an outside entity by the name of Infinity. This week on Monday, we got notification that they are going to be coming to our school on Wednesday, April 28th, which is tomorrow. They'll be on campus from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. I know that some parents have been concerned about the nasal swab, which is, there's a little Q-tip that basically swabs the nose. There is going to be a saliva test according to the emails that the district sent us. So that's what we're anticipating. So if your child, doesn't feel comfortable with it, you can let them know that they can request the saliva test as well. Another piece is, let's just say that your child is still, not sure that they want to do that on their own, or maybe you have some reservations about having the child take this test without you being present. They're on campus till 7 p.m. So when you pick up your child at 4 p.m., you are allowed to go and get the test administered at that time so that you can be there to support them. You just need to make sure you let the teachers know so that they can let the students know, okay, you're not going to get tested.
Garza, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Leslie has a question. She's wondering if this meeting will be only in regards to the in-school experience or if you'll be covering both in school and online.
Most of the stuff is online, in all honesty. Most of the information will be online. About the in-person experience, because we're going to be talking about childcare, testing. So most of the information will be around some of the things that are going on campus.
Great. Good luck. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. The test will be administered every 8 to 14 days. So originally, the district had said that we were going to get tested every week. However, I think as they have laid out the plan and they have looked at their personnel, they are now telling us that it's going to potentially be every 8 to 14 days that the folks will be assigned to our campus. So just so that you know, and you're not saying like, yeah, I thought it was every week. There's had to be a slight change in plans. Let's just say, for example, you're like, oh, I'm not too sure if I want my kid tested. I prefer to take them to another site myself. You can still do that. You can still take your child to another site and get them tested with you on the weekend or whatever, whenever you have an opportunity to. You're not mandated to take the test on campus. However, in order to set foot on campus, you do have to take the test. And the district was pretty adamant in their language to us about that element, that everyone needs to be tested if you're going to be setting foot on the campus. It's one of their protocols that they have agreed to with the state, and so that's why they're being mandated to do it as well, and why they're now telling us that we need to convey that to our families, that it is a mandated process. The child must be tested every 8 to 14 days. Okay. Like I said, you can support the child in the afternoon if you feel more comfortable with that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, no, actually, I thought that made the parents could get tested as well, but I don't think so. It's really more for like the staff and for the students only. Okay. I don't know if Ms. Trevino, do we have anybody who have any questions about this before we move on?
We can move on. Nothing so far.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll just move on. The morning drop-off. So here's one of the areas I was trying today to sort of like direct traffic a little bit more, because when Ms. Morales has asked parents to go down to the valet, some people have not been very cooperative. We'll phrase it that way. And so I wanted to explain the rationale behind it. And even today we had to have the bus and let the bus person know, like, hey, you know what? Instead of dropping off here, we need you to drop off at the valet. And the reason for that is it just reduces congestion in that immediate area. If we have people who who stop, what it does is it blocks the traffic from continuing to flow because there's not an area for people to pull over. And then what we have is we have a really unsafe situation where cars that are behind are now going into the opposite lane and then trying to go around. We have parents who are getting out of their cars and opening doors. We have students who are disembarking their vehicles through the side where the traffic is going. So there's just like, there are a lot of pieces to that that are just not safe. And some parents have expressed they're like, oh, but Mr. Garza, my child has to walk all the way down, and I'd rather they just walk in. And I'm like, I totally get it. But that actually was a design element, and part of the reason for that design element was that we wanted the line to sort of dilute itself and give us an opportunity to check the kids in versus a lot of kids sort of arriving at a similar time, and then they all sort of emerge into a line at the same time. And now we have like a lot of kids in line, and then we're trying to separate and stuff, and we have them with their parents. And so we were actually trying to create a structure that would sort of naturally allow for the line to sort of like thin itself out as the kids are getting out of their car and then they're walking down. And then that would essentially give our staff time to check, it would essentially give the staff the time to check their daily pass and their temperatures, or the temperature, and then ask the questions. So please, 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 I implore to you that when you drop your children off in the morning, please just go over to the drop-off where Miss Bravo is, that's closest to the main building where we'll have the cones, and then drop the children off at that area and then allow them to walk down. It would be greatly appreciated. And again, it's just a matter of keeping everybody safe. Okay. And I don't know, again, if there are any questions, but if they're not, we'll move on.
You're good. No questions in there yet.
Great. The childcare program. This has been a source of lots of emails and phone calls. Some logistics first. It's obviously Monday through Friday. It's from 11 to 4 p.m. You must have an application completed. I've put the link here. And what I'll do is, oops. I'm going to try to drop, if Miss Trevino, if you can drop that into the, if you can just retype it and then just drop it into the chat. That way parents can have it. Thank you. If you need the application, you can just fill it out online. If you're having trouble, I've heard some people say that they submitted it online, but it didn't go through. You can always just stop by in the morning, and Terry has paper copies, and you can fill it out in the morning, and then your child can then stay in the afternoon the same day. We just need to have that on file before your child starts. Now here's where it starts getting a little interesting. And we originally were under the impression when we had our Zoom meetings that we were going to have enough staff between the TAs and the district and the LA's Best that we were going to be able to sort of create like pure cohorts that would go from morning to afternoon. And so the idea was that Miss Trevino's class was going to be with they were going to be in her class the whole day, and they were going to have recess by themselves, and they weren't going to mingle with anybody else, and they were going to go to the after school care program, and they were just going to switch teachers, and they were going to be together the entire day. That plan did not pan out. There are a couple of things that sort of happened. One was that the district said that the classroom has a 12-to-1 ratio, 12 students to 1 student. The after school care program, the child care program, has a 14-to-1 ratio. So right off the bat, we're already having some trouble because they've increased the number of kids who can be in that group. And that number determines how many adults they send to the school to provide a support. Then they said, okay, so now with like, I think 80-ish students, we qualify for somewhere around 7 to 8 staff, but they only have 5 because they're still trying to hire all of the staff through the LA's Best program. So now we're like, okay, we can use our folks because we have them. And then it was like, oh, by the way, originally we had told you guys that we would give you funds to increase their hours so they can work the entire day. But now it turns out that you only have $13,000 that you have to divvy up between all of your employees. And on top of that, they told us they did not negotiate with the bargaining unit for that represents that specific group of staff And if you exceed 800 hours, you are going to have to pay for their benefits for next year, which is to the tune of like somewhere between $7,000 to $12,000. So then I was like, so this notion that we were going to have all these extra, that we were going to be able to use these people to sort of fill the holes, all of a sudden sort of evaporated. And then on top of that, the district had said, we're going to send people to your school to support with the childcare program. And then they said, oh, that's only for the first 2 weeks. So we were like, okay. So now we have like larger classes, larger class sizes that don't even fit in the classrooms because our classrooms are structured for 12 students per classroom. So now we have a whole space situation. So we have space situation, we have staffing issues. On top of that, we have issues with like the amount of materials that we can use with them. And so poor Miss Raylin, God bless her, she's been working incredibly hard. Be nice to her. I'm like, oh my God, what can we do to help you out? Because she's trying to figure this all out, and it has not been easy. And so we are right now, like just trying to figure out. So this last week, we met with our arts teachers, and even though they had already schedules set up, we had them revamp their schedules, and we had them like, hey, we need you guys to help us with like the after school program so that we can potentially offer a class that can start taking up some time. Because the other part that we're looking at is like we have limited activity, limited staff, limited spaces, and then we also have we have them for 5 hours a day. So we were like, wow, that's a lot of time to manage the kids. And so inevitably what's happened is like with all of this stuff, we've had situations where, you know, the kids are getting into more interestingness, the staff are losing their patience with them. So yeah, so you know, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna apologize right now to everybody. You know, this childcare situation has really not been well executed, and unfortunately, as some of the changes that happened, not for anyone's fault, just as things sort of like have happened, I mean, it did not get well executed, and so we're struggling. And but like I told some of the parents that I've been talking to, it doesn't mean that Miss Raylin and myself and Mr. Munda and everybody else who's engaged in this process is not committed to making this work and making it work better fast. So we are gonna get the arts teachers to teach a class for at least 30 minutes in the covered lunch area as a grade level, so that we can start some time. I've talked to Miss Raylin about trying to do more outdoor activities. We have a lot of cleaning supplies, and so we're like, maybe we can figure out a way to get the kids to play with certain sports, and we can just sanitize everything in between cohorts using the materials, and then having sanitation wipes for the kids so that they don't touch their so that if they do touch their faces or their masks, their hands have been sanitized. So we're gonna do some things. I just need a little bit of patience so that we can sort of like navigate all of this stuff that's happening. The other part that also did not work in our favor was that we had originally thought that we can have a larger group in the covered lunch area, and they could do some of their asynchronous work, and we can have adults sort of rotating. But then what we discovered was that children didn't have their iPads charged. The iPads were dying. Even with earphones, the students still couldn't hear, they couldn't focus because, you know, kids were doing other activities. So basically, if it could go wrong in the childcare program, it has gone wrong. So I'm like, oh man, okay, so we have a lot of work. And so I just wanted to tell you guys, like, I'm gonna own it. We have a lot of work to do in that area, and we're gonna try to fix it. And hopefully we can do it very quickly. Hopefully by next week, the program that you've seen over the last 2 weeks will be different next week and stuff, because we're going to start implementing the changes this week. And as we work out some of the kinks, hopefully we can smooth things out next week and in the coming weeks. But yeah, I'm aware and we're working on it. And I think that the best thing I can do to let you know that I'm committed to sort of like making it work better and stuff. So that's what it is. I don't know if there are questions about that one.
Katie just mentioned like a couple of different outside resources that maybe could help, but I guess you and I could talk about that later, and we could get IPA involved too. Yeah,
I mean, I did talk to Primetime, but space is obviously an issue. And then the other thing is that we would have to get a waiver from the district. to do that. Now, I do think that there is a way to make that happen, actually. Like if it became like like if we're not able to figure this out ourselves, then there are ways for us to bring in like a prime time. And I just finished talking to Peter on Friday, and Peter's the person who runs the primetime program. Now, the only thing is that obviously that's a paid program. So, that's something that we have to sort of like look at. So whenever we go with a third party, obviously that would require payment from the people who are participating in that program. In the past, we've been able to hit certain numbers. We do provide some student scholarships. So that because what ends up happening with Primetime is that Primetime pays the school money to rent our facilities. And then what we do with the money that they give us is we basically turn around and then we give it to the students. And then what's it called? Then that way we sort of help them get more students. And then we also are able to help some of our needier families and stuff who just may not be able to afford it, and who, things may not be working on in prime time. So if we're not able to address the concerns ourselves through Ally's Best, then I will start looking at like potentially figuring out the waiver process for prime time to come in and provide that additional support. I don't know if there are any questions about that. I know I see a few things in the chat. Amy, do you see anything?
No, I was able to answer a couple of things that came through.
Okay, all right. And thank you again for your patience. I really appreciate it. That has definitely not been a very smooth process. I think similar with the COVID testing has also been a real challenge. So the next part is selecting an alternative program. So the district did say that it was on a biweekly basis. And so if some folks, are in distance learning and they want to go to the hybrid model. So here are some of the little caveats to that. We need to have space because we are obviously limited to 12 students in the classroom in the morning. And let's just say, for example, a 13th student wants to come in, then we start running into some challenges, right? Because that student can't join that class. So what we're dependent on is is it possible where like everybody wants to come back? Right? Like, so if everybody wants to come back, the teacher can have an AM group, a PM group, and everything's great in that structure, actually. But if there's not space, then we have to start looking, and you're like, I want my kid to go back to school, and they have to go back, and the district said, you guys are going to provide it. Then we start looking at like changing teacher assignments. So like we look at like, okay, does another teacher have less students in their in-person AM hybrid classroom? And then we try to meet your needs that way. So we just need to understand that it's not going to be like a perfect situation, right? If you want to come back on campus, there has to be space, and then we have to figure out where that space is going to potentially live. And it may result in the child having to change teachers. So I wish I could tell everybody like, hey, we'll make it work, but unfortunately, like today I asked Mr. Nick, our plant manager. I asked him to go through and like take a look at our rooms and see if it was possible to increase the number of children in the room and still maintain the 6 feet of separation. And he told me that it's not possible. Like most of our classrooms, given the square footage that we have, like he could not add an additional table into the rooms and stuff. So again, we just have limitations, physical limitations on what we can actually do. So again, I'm going to ask people just to be patient with us, be flexible as we're all trying to navigate this situation. And I get what the district's trying to do. They want as many kids to come back to school. And I think the hope was like, hey, look, it's very safe for you to come back to school. And maybe you didn't think it would be at the very beginning, but now as you see things sort of working themselves out, maybe you're going to be more inclined to want to go back to school. And that's great. And I was like, but when you're in the front lines and you're trying to sort of like navigate this situation, it does make it really tricky. So just know that we will work with you, but there are limitations, okay? So I just want to be honest about like where we are in this process. If you're like, you know what, I have not been happy with the in-person instruction, and I want to shift over to distance learning and resume my Zoom classes, just so you know, like that anybody can do that. So there's total flexibility there because obviously the teachers can add students to their Zoom classes at any time. So when you feel like you want to make that change, that is very possible. The only thing is that the district has asked that it be like every 2 weeks where we make changes and stuff, so that we don't have constant changes, but that they're happening on a bi-weekly basis. Okay, I hope that sort of clarifies that piece, and I'm gonna ask Amy if there are any questions.
Sorry, Garza. I responded to Patty. Patty was wondering how to get a hold of Raylyn, and that's it. That's all.
Okay, and I don't know if you can put Raylynn's email. You can, as I know some parents were having trouble with the application, and so what they did is they filled out the online version, and then what they did is they emailed it to her just to make sure that she had it. Okay, all right, and so then we'll continue on. Attendance. Oh, I didn't finish this. I must have gotten distracted today. So attendance, the only thing I wanted to share with you about attendance is that there's a lot of flexibility. If your child has an AM class, in-person class, and for some reason they can't make it for a variety of reasons, right? Like they weren't feeling well, you weren't able to drop them off, something came up. The really cool thing about right now is that there's a lot of flexibility. You could log into Schoology. If you do the work that the students are going to be assigned, then that will count as attendance. If you want to attend their Zoom session, you can email the teachers and just say, hey, we weren't able to make it to class. Is it possible for us to attend the Zoom session? And then the teachers can just be aware that you're going to be adding on at that time. So there is some flexibility there. And what the great part about it is that let's just say your child's like kind of in the middle, not feeling very well, but they're okay, and they can potentially just go engage in the learning process through Zoom or even on their own. As long as you log into Schoology and then turn in the assignment, you can be counted as being present. So, okay, and I don't know if there are any questions about that.
No questions about that, but there is a summer school question in here.
Okay, I'll address a summer school question at the very end.
Sounds good.
Okay, picture day. A lot of parents were asking about picture day, so we did schedule it. Right now, we have it scheduled for May 6th from 8 a.m. to about 12 p.m. Students who are at home can enter the campus. Oh, now I'm thinking about my friend Leslie who left. I'm gonna have to give her a call later on. Sorry, I digress. So the students who are at home can enter the campus with a temperature check and answering the screening questions. So we want to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity to participate in the picture. So you guys will be getting some additional information later this week. So on Friday, we'll probably be sending home the flyers so that if you want to purchase pictures, you can purchase them, and then we'll probably provide you a schedule. I think tomorrow we're gonna test out a schedule with the COVID testing, and if that schedule works, then we're gonna use that schedule for the pictures as well. So there's more information to come in the next couple of days, so you'll know exactly like when your child will be taking their picture, and then if you're at home, that it will be outside, and we'll have one of our gates open so that you can come onto the campus and then also take your picture. Okay. Alrighty. And the last thing I wanted to sort of like talk about was supporting our students during a pandemic. And I just want to talk, I think sometimes when our kids get upset, and trust me, I know I have my own kids, and I get tested on this, and sometimes my wife has to remind me, and sometimes I have to remind my wife, and so it's kind of like a tag team and on support. Sometimes when our kids misbehave, the perception is that they're just being bad. And the reality is that, like, what I've learned through my own experience with kids here at home and at school, and through Ruth's class and her experience, the reality is that our kids are probably struggling with something. And during this time, I've talked to several adults, and they're talking about the loss of life, family members. I know, like, my daughter, like, she's lost her sport because she can't go play basketball with her team. And so there are all these things that are going on. And so there are emotions inside them that they don't know how to process. And so often they manifest themselves in, being short-tempered, getting upset, yelling about things that are totally innocuous. And you're going to be like, why are you yelling about something so innocuous? Like, seriously, like, what's wrong with you? And I think when sometimes like we forget that our kids still struggle with sort of expressing to us how it is they feel in a sort of in an intellectual way, right? Because that process requires reflection and thinking and an ability to almost like pull yourself out of a situation and then analyze it and then be like, this is what's wrong. And that's really sophisticated stuff that quite honestly, our kids are not going to be able to do. And the vast majority of our kids, more likely than not, know that when they cry or when they act up, they get attention. So that's how you get interesting behaviors from your kids, right? And that's kind of like the nuts and bolts of it in a very crude sort of description. And so I wanted to talk to you about like what happens when your kid does give you like yells at you. And I am guilty because when somebody yells at me, I get defensive. And what's it called? And so it's really hard for me to stay calm because I'm like, why are you yelling at me? That is not okay. I'm not gonna have my own kid yelling at me. And so, but I've been trying to work on, saying to my daughter, it seems this is making you really upset. And I think like just like them hearing that, like you see their emotion, like that is an acknowledgement of them. And that's the first step in them sort of like feeling like, okay, I'm being seen. Somebody notices that something's wrong, right? And that's a very first step that really like we all need to sort of like engage in with our students and stuff and our children when we're at home and stuff. And and if you struggle with that, like this very pivotal piece, so like yelling back at them, talk to your wife or your significant other, whoever's in the house, to help you in those moments, right? Because that's what we need, right? We need somebody to remind us in those moments when somebody yells at us and we want to respond to them and say, you can't yell at me, that we say, hey, it seems like you're really upset. And that's one of the things I think is really important, right? So if we can't do it on our own, we ask our partners to help us out. And then because our kids need this process. The next thing is that we validate their emotions, right? We want to say like, I understand that this is really difficult. And even if you don't agree with them, right? Like you're like, your kid's upset because, somebody took something away from them, a sibling took something away from them, or you ask them to get off the television and actually go and exercise or something like that, right? Like that happens to me all the time. I tell them, get off the screens, let's go. And then they yell at me and I'm like, whoa, why are you yelling? So those are the moments where like, oh, I see this is really difficult for you to leave that screen. This is really difficult for you to help me clean some of this stuff. I can understand that. So now it's like we're acknowledging like, oh, okay, this very moment, this feeling, we're going to acknowledge it. So that's like the next part of the process. The next thing is like physical contact. Just saying, hey, can I give you a hug? Because a lot of our kids just need somebody to give us a hug in these like moments when there's a lot of emotions bubbling out, because now that hug, that physical contact starts to make them feel like, oh, like I'm connected and I'm like literally connected with this person because they see me, they understand me, and they're giving me love, right? And then the next thing, because we don't want our kids growing up just yelling at us, because that's not a good situation either. Like we want to engage in like some probing questions. I hear what you're saying. Is there anything else in your body? Does your body feel hot? Does it feel tingly, achy, tired? What do you think is causing that? When did it start? And so I think like those types of questions can now help you dig into what's potentially really bothering them, right? And then that's when you can have a much more profound conversation that actually resolves some of the deeper issues. Like when I talk to my daughter, I'm like, hey, so what's really going on? I'm like, and I start asking some probing questions and it comes out like, well, I haven't been able to play with my friends on the basketball team and I miss them. And, I was just starting to get the hang of it. And then like, by the end of it, she's telling me about how like, she's going to try to come up with a plan to Zoom with them and stuff. And, I mean, I've seen where like both at school and then with my own children, like going through this like process, like really helps. And then some of the tools, like if your kid's not very good in terms of articulating themselves with words, then there's like a mood meter that you can engage your children in. Like, which of these faces best represents how you're feeling right now? And what's it called? And then that mood meter sort of gives you a sort of a sense of like where they are. Are they having low energy? Is it something where they have too much energy? Is it high pleasantness or low pleasantness, whatever the case is? But now you can start figuring out with these pictures like what's going on and what do you think is causing that and stuff. Sometimes kids are more visual, and so just having an image like that can help with your kiddos and stuff. So that's my little tip for today on how to navigate our kids during a pandemic, and quite honestly in general. I think we can all use these things and stuff. And you know, be forgiving of yourselves as parents, because it's hard. You know, I was telling somebody, I'm like, I have so many things going on in my life. I'm like, between my wife and the things that she's going through with her health and my work, you know, sometimes when my kids have their situations, I'm kind of like, oh my God, I've already used up a lot of energy. But I think it's just important. Just be forgiving of ourselves, but at the same time, let's try to engage our kids in ways that are going to be productive and stuff, so that we can really develop, you know, positive relationships with them. So that was just my little tidbit. And then that was it, my closing. And then just, I don't know if you guys have any questions. Amy, do we have any questions, or is everybody feeling great?
I was able to answer most of them. Julio was just asking about, he said that the teacher says there's room in the class and what to do. And I told him to continue the conversation with the teacher about, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Continue the conversation with the teacher, and then if we need to switch classes, we can at that point we can look at it.
Summer camp.
Summer camp. Yes.
Oh, summer camp. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Soma.
I know that the district is probably going to offer some kind of summer program. They haven't sent us any information about it at this point, but I do know that they are going to have like some type of a summer program. The other part is like, when is the school year going to start? We don't really know yet. Like, there has been talk about like changing the calendar. And so I know that the survey that everybody filled out had that as a component of it, but they haven't articulated to us if they were going to go ahead and change the schedule or if they were just going to leave it the same. But once they actually send me the information in regards to the summer program, I'll make sure to let you know. I have heard whisperings around that there is going to be some type of summer program available, because they sent out an email asking for administrators to cover the summer programs. And then they will also send out some information to teachers, asking for teachers who were interested in working during the summer. So I know that they're going to offer something. I just don't know what it's going to look like. And I don't have any of the registration information because the district has not sent that out to us yet. Anything else?
I wanted to share something with the group. El Centro del Pueblo is going to be doing some vaccines on Friday. So I sent you the information if the parents are interested, or if they have anybody that hasn't done it. They're going to be doing that on Friday with appointments.
Awesome. Thank you, Sulma. Yeah, I've heard if you want a vaccine at this point, I was listening to NPR as I was driving home, and there are a lot of places that you don't even have to have an appointment. You can basically, if you see the sign that says COVID testing, then some of them basically are now allowing people just to go in and get the vaccine without an appointment.
And this, for 16, it's 16 and over for this one, because they're doing the Pfizer, just in case they have a teenager.
Another question came up. As far as the COVID testing tomorrow, can people just show up anytime in that window, or do we need to reserve the time our classes are going for the COVID testing for the kids? Do they come, you said after 4 they can come?
So yeah, it's after 4 p.m. So after 4 p.m., parents, well, quite honestly, I think our schedule is designed so that everybody is done within the morning. And so then after, so like, let's just say, for example, your child's in the childcare program, and you're going to pick them up at 1 o'clock. Okay, so at 1 o'clock when you go to pick them up, you can say, hey, I wanted to escort my child over to get the COVID test. Is that okay? And then what we'll do is we'll walk you over to that area. We'll take your temperature, we'll ask the screening questions, and then we'll take you over. We'll have your child meet us in that area, and then we'll have you present as they're testing them. You at that point, you really after, I would say about 12ish, whenever you pick up your child, we can facilitate that opportunity. All right.
So it's only gonna be in the afternoon for the testing?
Well, the testing is going to be all day. The teachers have a schedule right now, and what's going to happen is that they're gonna escort the students over, and they're gonna take the test. And then if a child says I don't want to take the test, then what will happen is the child won't take the test, and then whenever the parent comes to pick up the child, they can take them over to get the test. Or if you're one of those parents who's like, I'm going to take them somewhere else, you can do that as well. I will say this. We did find out today. I'm not. Drawing a blank right now. And I know I just said it a few minutes ago, but there does need to be consent. And so, from what I understood is the district, when people went to a district site to get COVID tested, they completed a consent. So those children can now just get tested, and it's not a problem. However, if you took your child to an offsite place, a different location that was not LAUSD, then you've never filled out a consent form. If you've never filled out a consent form, then you do need to consent. So here's the problem. Cecilia was calling those families today and letting them know. So hopefully you already got the phone call about like how to what's it called, make that happen.
Yeah, I'm one of them. She called me earlier.
Yeah. So then what happens with that situation is there's a consent form that you can fill out, and then if you fill out the consent form and physically sign your name, then we have to upload it. We would have had to have uploaded it today because it goes to a Google Doc, and then that Google Doc, there's a download that the Infinity organization does so that the information is transferred over to their database. So let's just say, for example, we don't upload that document, and tomorrow we say, oh, here's a consent form, the parent already signed it. Sorry, we can't test that child. I was like, wow, that's an interesting sort of like caveat. It like literally needs to be in their database because they're scanning the barcodes. And so they needed to be on their actual database. The only way around that situation is that a parent would literally need to physically go to the school, and then they would have to, on their iPad, they would have to consent, and then they would have to sign digitally, and then the child can be tested tomorrow through the Infinity testing process. So I was like, wow, these are some nice little caveats that you're throwing at me today in the morning. Jeez, these would have been good to know a couple of weeks ago before everybody came to school. It is what it is.
I have a question.
Sure.
Since my mom usually goes and picks up Damaris, do I need to be present for her to take that vaccine? I mean, the test, or do I need to send a letter to my mom to get authorized to take her, or
I mean,
it doesn't matter?
You can probably send the grandmother, and then we can just say that oh, here's a guardian. Can you sign off on it and stuff? If you give us a letter, that would probably make it a little bit more kosher. I'm trying to be as flexible and trying to get all of our kids tested. So just let me know what you need, and we will try to figure out how to make it work. But we do have some limitations, obviously, because the district is requiring like that consent to be filled out.
Okay.
Garza Milagro has a question in the chat. It says, can a kid show up late to get a COVID test tomorrow? Like if they have a doctor's appointment in the morning?
Oh yeah. So like, let's just say, for example, a child, has a doctor's appointment. They come to school like at 9 o'clock, but their class went at 8:40 or whatever the case is. what we'll do is we will make sure to take them over and then have them get tested before they go to class and stuff, and then that way it's taken care of. All right, everybody. I don't know if there are any more questions. I want to thank everybody for being patient. I mean, I think some things have gone well. Some things like the childcare program and the COVID testing have been interesting, and have left a lot of space for us to, keep improving. Just know that I'm committed, and our faculty and our staff are committed to continuing to refine what we're doing and make it better. And we'll keep making it better so that our kids, have a really positive experience. I want the kids to walk away from this as like saying like, oh, you know what? They were really trying to help me out, and I really appreciate that. May not have been perfect, but they all were always there to listen to me and then help make things better. So I'm committed to that. And so just, if you need anything, please send me an email, call me. Phone calls are always appreciated sometimes because they're so much faster and I get so many emails. I'm not kidding you. I mean, it's like the emails are just coming through. I'm like, and I get so many emails from the district giving me updates. I'm like, oh my God, this is nuts. So call me up. It's nice to talk to people.
They want to stress you out.
I know, seriously, just give me a call. Cecilia can always bring me in from the outside.
There's just some thank yous in the chat, Garza.
Yes.
That kids are having a blast and they're happy to be back. So
I have to say, it is, for as crazy as it's been, it has actually been really cool to see our kids again and to see our families. Like, I've missed talking to our families and stuff, and just chatting in the mornings and stuff. So that's some of my favorite stuff to do. So whenever you see me in the morning, if you ever want to chat, just just come up. I'm always, you can ask Mr. Vino. I'm always willing to chat with people.
it's true. Very true.
This is I chat too much, but this is why I got into education. Working with people, it's fun. All right, everybody, I'm going to stop the recording. And what's it called? If you have any other questions, just let me know. And if not, we'll see you guys around.